Hey guys, welcome back to another video. If you didn't know, I was actually just visiting Disney World, so all the videos you've been seeing for the month of July, I have pre-recorded, but now I am back on a weekly schedule of recording, so we're just going to jump back into it. Today, I'm going to be going over my Disney trip, some suggestions. If you guys have known me, I'm a very big Disney fan. As you can see, my Funko Pop's up there. I just have always been a big fan of it. Walt's Dream, it was just all super cool. So, there are some things I would recommend doing and things you should know that I didn't know before we go to your trip to Disney World, because it is very helpful. So starting out, I would definitely suggest going to Disneyland over Disney World for a couple different reasons. And I'm actually going to explain that more at the end of this video, but I just wanted to say that at the beginning so you guys could keep that in your mind the whole time. So another very important thing, and this goes for Disneyland and for Disney World, is you have to get the Disney app that goes with the park. And you can find tons of details on there. And I actually suggest getting this as many months early as you can, like right when you find out you're going, so that you can track wait times and find out when the best time to ride each ride is. But you also have to manage where you can be riding rides in groups at the same time, because you don't want to be walking all the way across the park. It just depends on your party. And then the next thing is you have to get to the parks 30 minutes early to get a good system. If you're really worn out, then that's okay. You can stay later. You just may have to wait in longer lines. So if that's what you're wanting for, more sleep or longer lines. But you need to get there early on Magic Kingdom, because you have to ride the tram or the monorail. The monorail or the boat. And the boat doesn't require a face mask, but the monorail does at the time being. So I would definitely recommend getting there early so you can get to the park. And then once you get to the park, you get into the park, you can wait in line for rides until they open, which is a huge thing, because I actually have suggestions for each ride you could start with each day. And I know that right now the park hours are all super weird because of COVID, and we're still all readjusting, but it is getting there. So to start off this video, we're going to go ahead and get into Magic Kingdom. So my experience on this trip was amazing. Magic Kingdom's hours are from 9 to 11. So I do recommend getting there on time or earlier. And we actually rode the boat over because we didn't want to wear masks, and it was just cool to see. We didn't end up doing the fireworks there just because it gets so busy getting out of the park, and we were all just so exhausted, so we left early. My favorite ride there was Space Mountain. It was just a super cool ride. All the other rides are good, but it's kind of cool to see, if you go to Disneyland and Disney World, the differences in the Magic Kingdom parks, because some of the bigger attractions are both shared at these parks, and they have some differences on the rides, and so it makes it very interesting to see. I would recommend starting out with Splash Mountain or Jungle, because they can build up the long lines, and especially Jungle Cruise. It's not worth more. Actually, it is probably worth to some people more than a 60-minute line, but we only waited 15 minutes for when the park opened, and it was amazing, and the rest of the day, it was either closed or longer than a 90-minute wait. So the best thing to do for that is to start with one of those, and then once you're done with that, you can straight go to Splash Mountain, which also builds up a long line. And they're right next to each other, so, not right next to each other, but they're decently close. And most people go straight to Seven Dwarfs Mine Train from the get-go. And that ride is it's not worth a 120-minute wait, which is what we waited. It was a long wait, and it was not worth it. It was 3 minutes of a ride time. It's better if you have little kids, because it's a smaller roller coaster, but if you're big and you're all about the thrill, I don't suggest going on this ride unless it has a 30-minute or less. For some reason, it's considered a newer ride when it's not actually that new, because it was built in 2015, so it's been there for 6 years, and it just has a long line. So for shows are great because you can get out of the heat, you can get out of all the busyness, and it's just good to take a break for a minute. I recommend going on a show every time, unless you have an annual pass and you're continuing to go, because then you've already know what's going to happen in the show. So for Hall of Presidents, we actually didn't get to do that ride because it is closed because they're adding in a Biden animation, or Biden animatronic. So we were unable to do that one, but that's one that was on my list to do. So next time, if you guys are going there, I would suggest doing it, checking it out. Let me know how it is in the comments below. So for Carousel of Progress, that was my brother's favorite ride. It's okay if you have little kids that don't like history and all that stuff. They don't understand it as well as older people do. So if you're traveling with your grandparents or your parents, you may want to do that one. And I enjoyed it at my age. I thought it was super cool to see what Walt had, what we've progressed through. It's just really cool. But it's about like 20 minutes long, so that's a long time. For Mickey's PhilharMagic, that's a great one for younger kids. Mainly because it's all about Mickey and Donald, and they're going through all these things. And I know at Disneyland, they just opened up the new Coco section of the show, which we didn't actually get to see, but that is a great show to do, and I think it's a great way to get out of the heat. But a big thing about shows is making sure you can see from where you're sitting. So if you can't see, switch with somebody who can see over the people in front of you, because there can be some really tall people in the theaters, and if you have small kids, they're going to want to sit to the sides where no one's sitting so they can see. And then Country Bear Jamboree, I would recommend doing that one, but only like once on your vacation. And if you've already done it several times, I don't know that I'd keep doing it again just because it does consume some time. But it is a good show, and little kids would like that one. For the Tiki Room, that one's outside, and so I don't like it as much. We didn't actually do that one on our trip. And then for Enchanted Tales with Belle, that one's a good one. We didn't do it, but it's for younger kids, so if you're traveling with smaller kids, it's a good one to do. It's like a 25-minute show, so that one's cool. Okay, so that is Magic Kingdom. There are some things at that park that are very different from the one at Disneyland, and so I would definitely do that one. Another thing that I forgot to mention earlier is it is very good to have a space in between each day. It's like you're doing Magic Kingdom one day, then you need to have a break day, then you need to do another day, instead of having all 4 parks in one day in a row, because then you're just going to be exhausted, and it's going to make your trip at the park even worse. So, next is Epcot. So, one thing we learned about Epcot is definitely more for the food and less for the thrill rides. That is going to change in the future when Guardians of the Galaxy and the Let's Play Center gets finished. But because they're not finished yet, it is way more for the food. And especially because we were going in the Food and Wine Festival, it was all about the beer and the wine, and we're not drinkers, so it was okay. Epcot was okay. The best ride was Test Track. That's the biggest thrill ride at the time. So for the only show we did at Epcot was the American Tail show. I forget what it's called. I actually liked it because once you hit the grade I was just in, which was 8th grade, you actually get more of an understanding of what's going on in the show and what they're saying and what it means, and it was really cool. But if you have younger kids, anyone who hasn't been in 8th grade, they're not going to understand it as much, and so they may not like it as much. So that one's definitely more for adults, and that one's a great way to get out of the heat, especially because it's like a 12-minute show. The park hours for that one are from 11 to 10, so that one you can definitely sleep in with. I would suggest starting with Epcot first on your Disney trip because it starts later, so you have more time to sleep in and adjust to Florida time. And then I would suggest starting with Frozen or Test Track because those are the ones that build up a long line. Epcot generally has the 2 big rides, Soarin' and Test Track, and maybe Mission Space. Those are like the biggest ones, but the other ones are kind of more subtle. So I would definitely suggest starting with those 2 because they gain the longer lines. But Frozen is it's not what we hoped it would be. It's kind of like a knockoff of Pirates, right? It had some drops, but they weren't very big. It said you would get wet, but no one got wet. So, I think Epcot, actually, I'll tell you at the end what I would do with that one. So next up is Animal Kingdom. This is one of our favorite parks. Times from 8 to 7. I would recommend they're getting on time, but that one is an early starter, so good luck. The best ride there, in my opinion, was Everest. All of the rides other than Pandora usually have shorter times later at night. And that's generally with the parks. You really need to be watching that app to know, okay, this ride just dropped and that's a low time for that ride. We need to go over there and ride that. And later at night and early in the morning, rides have shorter times than middle of the day. So if you have big attraction thrills that get a short time in the day or in the night, you need to go do those then, because then it's going to, instead of waiting 120 minutes for the ride. We did the Tough to Be a Bug show, and it was an amazing show. That one's great for all ages. I definitely recommend it. And then the Up Bird show, where the birds are flying around, ours actually went wrong, and there were a few like malfunctions with the show, but it was still an amazing show and an amazing experience. That one I'd also recommend for all ages. So, and then I just kind of have a review for a second on the Pandora ride and the Navi River, the whole Pandora land. Pandora Land is super cool. It's kind of hard to understand if you haven't seen the movie Avatar. But it's like the Navi River ride, they could have done way better with it. So we actually skipped that one just because I didn't, we wanted to do Dinosaur instead of that one. So we ended up going and doing Dinosaur again. And that one has so many little rides there, and same with the other two. Other than Magic Kingdom, you can go back and you can do rides several of times because they have smaller rides, and you can't do that at Disneyland or California Adventures as much because they have more rides and that's more compact, and that's actually why I suggest to go there. But then for the big Pandora ride, we waited like 2 to 3 hours for that one. That one's a big attraction. And it was very cool. I didn't like it very much. The way that I think of it, and the way that most people think of it too, is it's a mix of Soarin', and it's a mix of Star Tours. And so you put those two together, and it's kind of like this big screen. And they recommend not if you're afraid of heights, and don't go on it if you get motion sickness. And it was okay. It just wasn't what I expected, because I was hearing it was way amazing. You can't miss it. And it was cool and all. It just wasn't my favorite. But other people in my party really liked that one too. So it just depends. I would definitely recommend doing that one at least once. For Hollywood Studios, the park hours are from 9 to 8. And the best ride there was Rock and Roller Coaster, but I would not recommend doing that one with little kids unless they're big on thrills, because that one does go fast and it goes upside down. Do as many shows as you can. Most of them are good. The Lightning McQueen one was very good. And then the Muppet one was okay. It wasn't as it wasn't as good as my expectations were, but it was really good. So now we have to talk about the Star Wars Rise of the Resistance reservation system, and I am very, very disappointed with this one, because it just made our experience a whole lot worse when we didn't get it. So we woke up at 7 a.m., which is the first boarding pass to get it. We were on there at 6:45 trying to get the reservation, and so they were tapping the button and refreshing your page. This is what you're supposed to do, just keep refreshing, and it finally opened up, and we got on, and we reviewed our party, just made sure everything was good, and by the time we hit join, it had gone out of reservations, and it was only like it was still 7 o'clock, and about 30 seconds in. Like, it was ridiculous how fast it went out. Within 30 seconds, there were no more reservations. And so then you have another chance to do it at 2 or 1 at the park. And so we were sitting at our lunch table, and there were people all around us trying to do the same thing. Like 10 to 15 people all trying to get the reservation. And out of all of us that were doing it, only 2 people got it. So maybe like a sixth of the park goes into that ride every day. And it was just super disappointing when you don't get it, because people are like, it's so amazing, and it's just frustrating that you're paying so much money to go into the park, and there's no guarantee that you're going to get it, because it goes out in 30 seconds, and you think you can get it, and it is so hard. So set your expectations that you're not going to get it, because it is so hard. I definitely recommend waiting on that one to see if you can get it later. Start with Tower or Rock and Roller Coaster. Overall, it was an amazing trip. For park days, my recommendation would be a 3-day park day. I would do 1 day at Hollywood Studios, 1 day at Magic Kingdom, and then I would do a Park Hopper Day at Animal Kingdom and Epcot. Start at Animal Kingdom, do all the rides you want to do there. Go to Epcot, do Soarin' and Test Track, and call it good. For food, I would recommend bringing in your own food because Disney's stuff is so expensive. And then for park differences, you kind of have to learn that one as you go. So you need to learn which one you want to go to. So for Disney World, I would recommend doing that one if you have younger kids that aren't about the thrill. But Disneyland is more compact and has better ride systems. And it's just a better park. The rides are more thrilling. You have way more rides to do in 2 parks. We did 3 days at the park, 1 day at each park, and then a Park Hopper Day of both. Overall, it was an amazing trip, and I hope this will help your trip be better too. See you guys.